Welcome back to this, the 6th video in the series for heathens in lockdown. This will be my last video, so I'll be talking today about the trickster and the potential for change. Some modern heathens prefer not to mention or include them at all. Others will with due caution. Some heathens will celebrate their identity and actively call on them. I am very aware that the trickster can be a very divisive figure in modern heathenry. So if you'd prefer to not watch this video, that's just fine. I will be mentioning their name, I will be mentioning their aspects and talking about some of the archaeological and historical record we have for them. And as some of you may know, I can't tell you how to heathen. So we'll just wait a moment and you can make the decision whether to continue or not. Okay, so this last video goes out especially to LGBT plus heathens who've spent the last few weeks in lockdown with transphobic, homophobic, biphobic family members who may be feeling unable to be their true selves, or they're having to put their journeys of gender or explorations of sexual orientation on pause. I wanted to let you especially know that I see you. Loki can be described as a benefactor and also maliciously sly, but I feel that's a very binary reading of a very complex individual. They are someone who initially uses savage wit and cunning to get the gods in and out of trouble. They are someone who changes gender and species as we change our clothes. They're someone who wouldn't look out of place on a drag stage, or for that matter, in a dressage competition. They're someone that, as a reviled outsider, many LGBT heathens identify strongly with. There's someone that heathen parents may identify with. There's someone for those who have been abused or attacked for being perceived or being different. Through this, I'll be using the gender-neutral pronouns to describe them, not because I want to impose a pronoun on their complex identity, but because I want to honour all the facets of it. I would like to start with a short prayer to Loki. And this is from the page, the Lokian Welcoming Committee. Lavender, floral and fearless, great converger, may you keep me. With your pride may I be blessed and see me bloom in my identity. Silver, strong and fair, see, Loki, my faith is yours. I exist as neither half of a pair and lay apart from binary laws. Chartreuse, wild and enigmatic, Crook's king, hear my call. Joy be to me emblematic, as within I never falter or fall. Loki is mentioned many times in the lore, in the prose and poetic Eddas and in the Norwegian rune poem. Their image is on the Snapton stone, the Gosforth cross and the Kirby Stephen stone, and they were first identified as a god of fire in 1835 by Jacob Grimm. Heimdall is described as their enemy, Thor as their friend in a Norse odd couple kind of way, Odin as their sworn brother. They cut off Sif's hair, steal Freya's necklace and give the golden apples of youth to the giants. In 1956, Folke Strom proposed Loki was a hypostasis of Odin. In 1959, Jan de Vries concluded Loki was a typical trickster figure. Anne Holtzmark in 1962 concluded that there could be no conclusion about Loki. So how do we relate to Loki as heathens in lockdown? Loki brings great changes in the myth cycle. They are associated with the events that bring the greatest benefit and the greatest suffering. I see Loki as representing potential and the potential for change. As human beings, we only change when the risk of staying the same outweighs the risk of changing to something new. We cannot force change in ourselves or in others. Change may be a slow process or an abrupt one. What changes have you made to your life in recent weeks? What values have been brought into sharp relief through your experiences? Have you chosen to discard practices or take new ones up? I want us to pause for a moment and ask ourselves, what might we consider changing after living through lockdown? This period invites us to stop and take a good, long look at our lives. What are we most unsatisfied or satisfied with? What steps can we take to change that if we are unsatisfied? If you feel safe and able, there's a counselling and life coaching tool that you can work through called the Wheel of Life. And it may help put things into perspective or help you see things in a different way. Loki sees things differently and certainly behaves differently to the majority of the gods. They enable change. For all the crappy experiences we are enduring at the moment, are there small good moments for us too? How might this time help us see things differently? Being in lockdown is hard, and it might be a struggle to get from day to day. We don't have to have learned new language, mastered pottery, and written an experimental symphony by the time it's lifted. We can choose to see things differently and not to put ourselves under that kind of pressure. In the first video in this series, we looked at Odin as wanderer and talked about the rune Isa. Going back to that, we might ask ourselves, what might we plan to do in the first days after the lockdown is lifted? What positive changes might we choose to implement for ourselves? Loki invites seeing things from a new perspective. I'd like to read now from a lovely book called The Gospel of Loki by Joanne Harris. This part of the story is from close to the beginning of the myth cycle, and it's where the building of the walls of Asgard. The builder has just proposed his terms, and Loki has his very first idea to help the gods get what they want. Finally, I took pity on them. Hang on, I said. I've got an idea. 23 sets of eyes turned to look at yours truly. We sent the builder to see his horse, and I explained in private. We shouldn't dismiss the idea, I said, just because it seems a little unreasonable. Unreasonable? Freya shrieked. To sell me into a marriage with a labourer? I shrugged. We need stone walls, I said, and so we need to agree to his terms. Freya burst into noisy tears. I passed her a handkerchief. I said we need to agree to his terms. Actually paying his price remains an entirely different matter. Heimdall gave me a scornful look. We can't renege on a deal. We're gods. We're bound by our word. We have to pay. Who says we renege? I grinned. We just make sure the terms we set are impossible for him to fulfill. don't mean we should cheat, said Balder, opening his blue eyes very wide. I grinned. Just think of it as maximising our winning potential. I would like to end this session about potential and change with a prayer from the Loki and Welcoming Committee site, and this is Rise by Chaos Comes Knocking. Smoke comes, and fire too, perhaps in the distance a flickering, lightning on the horizon. We will burn, you say. Then call me the Lady of Ashes. We rise again, we creatures of flesh and dream. That is what we can do. That is all we can ever do when embers flicker on the wind. That is his whisper. That is his drumbeat, the marching orders of a Lokian heart. Rise. By laughter, by wit, by a trickster's courage and a fool's abandon, rise. If only for spite, if only for grief, if only to hear Wolf's song again, rise. Fire may come. Fire will come. It always does in the end, in one form or another, burning bright or the burn of ice. But we know fire, we children of the dog star. We live and die and dream in starfire. Every night we rise. The world breaker builds a boat with what he has at hand, and the water rises. Scarred lips may still smile, no? So that's the end of this, the 6th and last video in this short series for Heathens in Lockdown. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will hopefully see you soon. Bye for now.